Did you know that the One Piece cast had to adhere to a bunch of strict rules to be part of the series? One of the first and most important rules was that the actors had to genuinely develop a friendship among themselves. The production's idea was for the actors group to truly embody the spirit of a crew that spends days at sea together. And for that, they really needed to get along well with each other. Netflix's goal has always been to produce multiple seasons of the series, considering that One Piece has been around for over 25 years, with more than 1,000 episodes and a lot of content and material to explore. And no one knows how much material Eiichiro Oda, the manga's creator, will write. After all, he knows better than anyone how to create great stories and many mysteries. In any case, to turn all this into streaming material for several seasons that will take many years to be produced and finished, it wouldn't work if the crew members, the cast, weren't really friends.
It's about adventure with our core group, the Straw Hats. This amazing found family.
And it seems like the folks who play the roles of the Straw Hat Pirates really managed to bond well, and the series turned out great in that regard. This is just one of the 10 rules you're about to discover that the One Piece actors had to follow. Reading the manga and watching the anime. Come on, seriously, this isn't a task, it's leisure. But, as you can imagine, to portray the Straw Hat Pirates, the actors had to understand exactly how each anime character behaved. Like, Inaki Godoy had to learn the cheerful demeanor and the always happy and somewhat goofy way of speaking of Luffy. Taz Skylar needed to learn the passionate and romantic way Sanji behaves with women while simultaneously despising and mistreating all the men he encountered in the crew. Emily Rudd needed to grasp exactly how Nami is an excellent navigator and straightforward in what needs to be done, yet greedy and passionate about money. The same applied to Makenyu as Zoro and Jacob as Usopp. I have to say that each of them, without exception, did a great job in their roles. It became quite challenging to say who performed better in their acting in this first season, and we hope they continue this way, especially because, for sure, none of them must have watched all episodes of One Piece except Emily, since she herself admitted that she's been enjoying and watching anime for a long time. Intense training. This was probably the most challenging rule for the One Piece actors to follow. This is because, with the exception of Makenyu, who has already starred in several martial arts films and actually practices martial arts, all the other new members of Luffy's crew had to train a lot, really a lot, to perform most of their fight scenes. This was because the directors and production completely limited the use of stunt doubles in the series recordings, as the goal was for the actors to perform their anime confrontation scenes, and there was really a lot of them. Taz Skylar, who plays Sanji, had to train very hard to develop the necessary skills in his kicks, just like the original character. Emily had to train quite a bit for her performance with the staff she used in her scenes, and even Jacob had to train how to shoot with Usopp's slingshot. Makenyu, on the other hand, had to endure a little less than the rest of the cast because he's a natural fighter, the son of a great fighter and the late film actor named Sonny Chiba, who worked in the famous action movie Kill Bill as Hattori Hanzo. Training with ropes. Well, think being an anime series actor is easy? It's all about training, and a lot of it. In addition to physical training to perform combat movements, all the actors, without exception, had to train with ropes. Did you think those awesome movies in the series were done by themselves? The truth is, this part of the filming really required them to execute the movements correctly to achieve the scene accurately. And undoubtedly, one of the people who suffered the most from this was poor Zoro, who had to do some scenes with a sword in his mouth. Man, that must have been really tough. Hair coloring. Speaking of Zoro, everyone knows that anime always likes to give their characters various hair colors, and the swordsman who will one day be the best on the seas, if he isn't already, has green hair. And since there are no humans with green hair, Makenyu had to color his hair from time to time to film his scenes, and I have to say it looked pretty cool. And he wasn't the only one, because Emily Rudd, who plays Nami, also had to dye her hair light orange, in addition to cutting it and making it much shorter. This was because, besides the actress's hair being brown, it was much longer than Nami's. Therefore, this rule applied to them and also to Jeff Ward, who played Buggy and dyed his hair blue in the episodes he appeared in. The other actors like Jacob, Inaki, and Taz didn't have to go through this hair coloring process since their hair in the series matches their real hair. Learning to cook. This was a rule that only applied to one cast member, Taz Skylar. It might sound like a joke, but the Brit who portrayed the best chef in the Grand Line really had to learn how to cook to play Sanji. This rule had to do with the actor's understanding that, for the character, his hands were extremely precious because they were the tools he used for cooking. This is precisely why he used only his feet to fight, preserving his work instruments. For this, Taz had to take cooking lessons from a renowned chef named Jamie Oliver, which is quite impressive. This rule made a lot of sense. I wonder if it was Oda who requested this. Not being 100% like the anime. Huh? What does that mean? You might be wondering. Relax, I'll explain right now. Despite the actors having to watch One Piece and read the manga to internalize how each original character acts and thinks, another rule imposed by the production team was that they should blend with that themselves. In other words, when playing Luffy, the team also wanted to see a bit of Anaki in some traits of the character in the series. The same goes for McKinyu, Emily, Jacob, and Taz. This is because, as you've surely noticed, the series story, while similar to the anime, is different and follows a different path, with details and a somewhat different narrative. The idea is for the live-action series not to be a copy of the anime, but rather another version of Eiichiro Oda's masterpiece. For this reason, the actors had the freedom to be a bit of themselves in their characters, not afraid of heights. This was certainly more of a preference than a rule, but it was on the list of things communicated to the actors who auditioned for the roles. This was because the production already knew that there would be several scenes in which the actors would need to perform incredible aerial acrobatics or participate in absurdly high falls. Like Anaki Godoy and Emily in the scene where they stole the treasure chest from Axe-Hand Morgan. So, for sure, not being afraid of heights is something they will all need, especially if in the next season, the Skypiea arc in the Sky Island is also adapted. Can you imagine? Swordsman training. It wasn't just Taz who needed to develop special skills to play a character in One Piece, because McKinyu had to do the same to portray Zoro on the streaming screens. This is because Zoro not only fights, but also needs to handle swords, and not just one, but 3 swords. One of them he holds in his mouth. To undergo this training, the actor received top-notch assistance from the swordsmaster Koji Kawamoto, who worked on and choreographed all the sword scenes used in the movie John Wick 4, which were quite a few. To execute his scenes perfectly, the actor needed at least 3 months of exclusive sword training to make the movements. It's worth noting that all the swords used in the series are made of carbon, which makes them lighter and easier to handle than real swords. But it's still challenging to perform those moves in the Santoryu style. Meeting Eiichiro Oda. This rule didn't apply to all actors, but only to one of them, the protagonist, Luffy. Anaki Godoy. The young man of Mexican origin was handpicked to portray the rubber pirate, and one of the things that weighed heavily in his selection was the fact that Oda found him extremely similar to the Luffy he imagines and draws in various possible aspects. For this reason, Netflix arranged a meeting between the creator of One Piece and the series' lead actor, who is the captain of the Going Merry. Their lively meeting took place in Japan, where Oda resides, and it was very cool and helped Anaki to even better interpret the, perhaps future, Pirate King. It also reinforced everything Oda had in mind for the series, as Netflix had an agreement with the manga artist that the series would only be released with his approval after he had seen the episodes. And that's exactly what happened. Everything went well, and the series has been a tremendous success. These were 10 more strict rules that the One Piece actors had to follow. This video has come to an end. But your journey isn't over yet. Click on one of these 2 amazing videos that are appearing on the screen and continue with us, watching sensational content. The first one is definitely worth watching.